And she almost shouts, she says, well, why not? And he shouts back, this is the outhouse. Get you? She said, this is the outhouse. We live right up the driveway there in a four bedroom. Isn't that cool? Unfortunately, the Marines don't want to listen to me on YouTube, otherwise, but I'll tell them that I used their story finally after 20 years. We function in this tiny cabin consciousness, and I wrote some stuff here. I don't want to miss anything. I may read some stuff. When we give in to the happenings of the human drama and allow fear and anxiety to suck us into that consciousness, that's a tiny cabin consciousness. And we also live in a tiny cabin consciousness when we function like that, and where we react to situations and people and situations, we react to them at the same level of consciousness in which they present stuff to us. I'll give you an example. We solve anger with anger. I know I've done that, and I'm sorry I do, but there are times when we kind of, somebody is in our face and angry. What do? Give them anger back. But what we need to realize is we can't solve the problem. We have to rise to a higher level of consciousness, and we send love to that person rather than anger, right? There are things that socially that we could actually inform government about that same thing on going to a higher level of consciousness to solve a problem. We can't solve hatred, and I'm not going to get into political, but just a little minor statement here. We can't solve hatred and war with more hatred and war. Do you believe in that?
Yes.
Then clap for it. Because I think that's the way it is. This is a Marine, a former Marine speaking. We can, another thing I wrote, that's kind of cool, I like this one. Ego comes out so bad sometimes. But this is good. This is good. We are in a tiny cabin consciousness when we see the chaos and everything that's happening to us, and we put the label of all these happenings that we don't particularly like or enjoy, but who brings us kind of fear, doubt, where we put the label of chaos and uncontrollability on it. This is, if we take a look at what I just said, this is pretty awesome. And that's a whole speech unto itself. When we look at what's going on and we say this is chaos and this is uncontrollable and it's not good, well, we can't be half pregnant. In our belief system, there's God and there's only God. Linda said there's only one mind, and it's the mind of God. If that is so, then everything that's happening could possibly be this idea of God, which is an intelligence in the universe that's expressing itself in its own particular way, driving some of us to a higher level of consciousness. Can we accept that a little bit? Yes. People would say, Angelo, well, I'm not saying that I can't, if something is happening that's pretty negative, I can say, oh, don't worry, it's just the universe. No, that's not it at all, because I'm not walking that person's moccasin. But what I can think is in terms of that most of the things that happen to Angelo in this life form, everything that happens to Angelo contributes to Angelo in some way. If we can just accept that. And I look back on my life, and it's pretty long. Wow. Anyway, when you look back and see all those things that really disturb me, that if there were a tall bridge, I would have jumped off of, but I didn't want to hurt myself. When we look at those things that are happening to us, and they're so detrimental at the time, but here 10 or 20 years later, I look back on it, that's the best thing that could have happened to me. It brought me to a higher level of understanding. But until we walk in the moccasin of those people who are suffering, then we can send the love energy, the understanding, love energy, and compassion, and provide the support that they need. Do you agree with me on some of that? Yeah. And so again, I think that's a tiny cabin consciousness that we need to reconcile the fact that if it's all good and it's all God, then what's happening, what is it? Is there an intelligence in the universe that's running the universe? And if there is, we don't understand why certain things happen. They're happening. So is there a hidden benefit that we don't know about at the time? We don't know. We can rationalize. But our big problem is this: we should not be labeling what's going on. It's God in action, isn't it? Hard to accept. We can transcend that tiny cabin consciousness by expanding our viewpoint, by expanding our awareness, by getting to a higher level of understanding that we're more than just this physical existence, that there's something dynamic out there, there's something so mysterious that we can actually think a thought and vibrate love and have it come back and express itself throughout a community. It's like a 100th monkey thing, you know? And so we can expand our awareness that, you know, there's something out there that we may not, as physical people, understand fully that's operating, and it's a divine intelligence. Bob can tell you that when he gets into this quantum physics idea, and it's all there and it's proved. And we quantum physics people are working on it. Okay, well then, I have another story and about that defines this, and it has to do with our frying pan. And I want you, when I mention the word frying pan, I'm talking about our consciousness and our to know what, to know with. Anyway, these two people decided to go camping along a lake, and they were there, and they said, they got up early at 4 or 5 at daybreak, and they said, let's catch our breakfast. So they're up there and they're fishing. Now I got this from my friend Janine Burns. I was on her TV show a couple weeks ago, out of New York, and she told a story that really, it was great because I was able to talk about it for about 30 minutes on a TV set. But anyway, these two people were fishing, and one guy kept he'd catch a fish, and pretty good sized fish, and he'd say, oh shucks, and he'd take it off the line and throw it back in. And then he'd catch another. The other guy wasn't having any luck. And he went through several almost, pretty good sized fish. And so finally the guy got a little bit upset. And he said, what are you doing, Bob? No, not our Bob. What are we doing? What are you doing, Bob? You're throwing in some quality fish. What are we going to eat? He says, well, I had to because when we brought our camping here, I only brought my small frying pan. I only brought my small frying pan, so I'm trying to catch fish that will fit into my frying pan. And I bring that as a metaphor today. It's an awesome story. It's a metaphor. And it shows us that when we have this tiny cabin conscious, we have actually put ourselves into a minuscule, very small range of experience. That we haven't expanded ourselves to a global expansion. And so when we're in that consciousness, the consciousness of the small frying pan, it's the to know what. And so when are we on that? We know that our frying pan is too small. I've got a series of these. When we find ourselves on sleepless nights, concerned about the day that we just had and worried about tomorrow. Then we've got a small frying pan consciousness. Our to know with consciousness is too small. Do you agree with that? Yeah. When we accept the opinions of others and allow the opinions of others to define who I am or what you are, then we are in a small consciousness, the small frying pan consciousness, the tiny cabin consciousness. To know what is too small. Do you agree with that? Yeah. We're getting there. We're almost there. We're almost there. We're in a small frying pan consciousness, a tiny cabin consciousness. When we allow the opinions of others, the diagnosis of others, to tell us that that's the truth of our being. And what it does is, when we accept a diagnosis like that, or some statement from someone saying you're not worthy enough or whatever, we are belittling our spirituality. We are belittling our power to create, our power to create the unrealistic, the unreasonable, the illogical. We can do that, but we can't allow the opinions of others to say you can't. And you have a conscience that's so darn small. And so, there's a story that has to do quick with that Bernie Siegel, and I love this, and it shows that if we accept that we accept something that diminishes our own spirituality. This lady wrote to Bernie Siegel, and she said this. She said, I want you to know about this because I really care for you, Bernie, but you need to know what happened to my aunt. And so she said, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor. Okay. And then when she got the diagnosis, she stopped eating. She was going downhill. Her body was starting to shut down. She was accepting as truth the fact that she only had 3 months to live. And she was accepting it as truth. And so a friend of hers went to her one day and said, there's an experimental treatment in Mexico that you can try that seems to be working out. So what does she do? She goes to Mexico and has the treatment. All of a sudden, what's happening with this lady? What's happening? To know with. Here we go. And so she started feeling better. She started gaining weight. She went back to work. She started driving. And for 2 to 3 years, she was just on the top of the world. She was okay. Until she was at, not Arvon, she was at a supermarket. And she runs into the doctor that gave her the diagnosis of that she was going to die in 3 months. And he was shocked that she was still alive. And he looked at her and he said, my God, what's happened here? What's going on? And she told him the story. She went to Mexico. He said, that's all quackery. You know, that's not true. They don't know what they're doing. You shouldn't have been spending your time and your money so foolishly. And what happens to this lady? In 5 days, she died.
Yep.
She totally accepted the diagnosis, and she died. True story from Bernie Siegel. So we know that we are this magnificent creative being. We know that we have a direct link, a direct connection to the electromagnetic energy, which is the essence of the universe itself. Whether we believe it or not, it doesn't really matter. It's always happening to us. And we know this is true, and we know that this center, the Positive Living Center, we have made a very big difference in this community with our love energy, not only in this community, but in every other community where our people function, that we are making a difference with this tremendous energy that we are. And say with me loud and clear.
And so it is.
This is it.